Yer! What's going on, guys? It's your boy Burrow77 coming to you with a little North London Derby preview. With me today, I got my man NYCGunna. I've known Gunna for a minute. He is actually in London. He's an Arsenal supporter. And if we're being honest, he's one of the more I want to say unbiased, but realistic Arsenal supporters. And he does very much approach Arsenal games and Arsenal betting with a sharp perspective, and not so much a chest out, chest thumping, we're going to win by 1,000,000 goals. And he's also not the kind of Arsenal pessimist who's always like, well, I'm betting against my team because if I don't care if I lose the money, I'm still going to win that way emotionally. So, yeah, I'll let Gunna do the rest of his introduction, and then we'll kind of get right into some of this NLD stuff.
Yeah. What's up, man? I am very happy to finally be joining you. A little quick background about myself. Grew up in New York City, hence the NYC. The Gunna comes from the Gunners. Been an Arsenal fan my entire life. Could kick a ball and was watching the team as long as I can remember. Mom used to live in London. There's a story there for another time, but I love this team more than anybody should reasonably love anything. I have witnessed some serious highs. I've witnessed some serious lows. We had a number of years where those lows were pronounced, and we're good again. And on the one hand, I'm really happy about that. On the other hand, that doesn't necessarily give our fan base or the team the right to behave as braggadocious or particularly cocky. For me, I'm just really fucking happy to watch good football again. It brings me a lot of joy. I get to go to a lot of games. I'm really privileged in that sense. And I mean, I love the match going experience, and I could go on and on about how that's come back into prominence at the Emirates, and that's really wonderful. But I do want to say Oaks is right that I no longer bet against my team, but in the dog days, if those of you that probably remember the Villarreal loss and the loss against Prague, I had a lot of money against those because in those days, I basically was either going to be angry as shit for a week or make a lot of money. So the betting against Arsenal is no longer a profitable proposition, thanks to Mikel and the boys. But I know the team pretty well, and I'm excited to get into what should be a little bit of an interesting North London derby. But I think with all derbies, I will start it off by saying you kind of have to throw like 20% of sense out the window. They don't make a ton of sense, and usually the day is dictated by somebody stepping up and being a hero, moments type stuff. They're a little bit more similar to like late round knockout games in terms of intensity and this like cup final mentality than they are to most league games. So yeah, I'm excited to be on, and I look forward to discussing this one.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to mention is absolutely do not sell yourself short. NYCGunna is a great writer. He has multiple blogs talking about match day experiences at Arsenal. I read his match day blog about going to the Porto match last year for UCL. So be sure to check down in the description. I will throw the link to that down there. So if you want to check out NYC's writing, go ahead. And I encourage you to, because he is an excellent writer. Yeah, of course. Gotta hit him with a little plug on that, because it is good stuff, man. I really do enjoy it. So that all being said, let's get into the North London Derby this year. Obviously, this one is at home for Tottenham. Gunners are on the road, dealing with some injuries. We know, obviously, the biggest one is going to be the captain, Odegaard, going down, playing over on international break. Calafiori also came up with a little bit of an injury. Declan Rice is suspended for a red card. And those, I would say, are the major ones. I know Gabriel Jesus has been injured for since you bought him from Man City, pretty much. So that is, I've also heard reports that he is good to go. So, like, I don't know. He's on the injury report, though. Tierney, Tomiyasu, and Marino, the Spanish guy, are also injured. So those guys are a little bit more of role players. The big ones, obviously, Odegaard and Rice with the perpetual Gabby Jesus injury. So yeah, it's a little interesting to me because even from yesterday, the Arsenal money line's taking a lot of steam. You could have gotten Arsenal at about plus 150 earlier in the week. They're down to about consensus over here at about plus 130. Plus 125 is kind of an outlier. Plus 135 is kind of an outlier. So we're calling it 130 right now. Gunner's on the road here dealing with some injuries. What do you think the squad looks like? What do you think of the odds? What do you think of the movement coming in? Obviously, knowing that it is the North London Derby and that public action more than sharp action, I feel, dictates these massive standalone matches.
Yeah. So I want to touch on the prices first. I was at the Brighton game. Let me quickly go through Declan Rice's red card. I was at the Brighton game in person when Declan got the red card. I think by the letter of the law, it's a red card. I totally hear that angle. I also think that as someone who's played the sport and a lot of people who I know have played the sport, it's one of those ones where like the referee can give them a talking to. There are a couple ways the ref can handle it. It is the 45th minute of a game. We're up 1-0 comfortably. It's in their corner. If you look at the context, there is nothing to gain. Did Rice kick the ball away? Yeah, he nudged it. Absolutely. Delayed a restart. And if that's all it takes, then that's fine. But we've not seen the league or officials adjudicate that situation similarly or consistency. So that's where some of the frustration comes from. For me, it's more of and I get that it's not up to me to decide when things are and aren't yellow cards. But for me, if it's a dangerous counterattack is about to be started, if a team is in a threatening position and someone intentionally knocks the ball away, absolutely give them a yellow card sight unseen. But I think that refs often have to use discretion. And this is one where, I'm mega biased, but it felt like a bit of discretion could have been applied because it's not a super, tense or high jeopardy situation. That being said, he's suspended. The league doubled down on the decision. We have to live with it. It was done by him to some extent. So immediately after the game, yeah.
Real quick, just like out of curiosity, because we do have some time and, more than just a gambling show, this is just talking the North London Derby. Do you think that red card has anything to do with the fact that he was carded in the 42nd minute right before half, and then Partey was also carded right before half? Because, look, I pay attention to refs a lot. I bet a lot of cards. Kavanaugh, historically, of reffing 19 of your games, hasn't been super strict on you guys. And, like you said, by the letter of the law, it is a cardable offense. But, we always know that discretion can be used, blah, blah, blah. I'm just wondering if you think it has anything to do with, breaking the ice and getting the first two cards right before half so that coming back out onto the pitch, it's already fresh in the refs' minds.
Yeah, I think this gets to like a larger football point. I think people often forget that refs and players are people. I think if Kavanaugh thought that Rice was feeling frisky and could get away with more than he should have been allowed to get away with, maybe that plays a part. I don't want to, that's conjecture completely. I do think, so the first yellow card happened 10 feet from me. It was a clear yellow. And this is not often the case with Rice. He was just a full step behind the man that he was tracking, slid in late, clear yellow. I think, from the player perspective, if nicking the ball away on the opponent's corner is going to be a yellow, you have to play everything so safe. It's almost robotic. On the other hand, that's the rule, and these are professionals who are coached to be that way. I think you have a point. Like, I think that maybe if that happens in the 80th minute after 35 minutes of good behavior from Rice, maybe he doesn't get a yellow. I think he was
somebody else being the first person to commit a foul or a rules infraction right after halftime.
It was some, I would generously describe it as questionable shithousery. Like he immediately after the half started doing some stuff that a ref probably doesn't love, might look the other way on. But also, to your point, Rice and Partey are the two players on our team who are top of mind. I think really the frustration for Arsenal fans come from it happening right before the North London derby. I think generally Arsenal fans online are this deserves its own segment. We're too reactive. A player did something, he got punished. And if our next match was, with due respect to Leicester and Southampton, if it was one of those teams, I think we would be super cocky and it'd be like, fuck it, I'll get on the pitch, and we'd still win the game. I think it's this notion that we could throw the title away in September, and so we have to be flawless against Spurs and flawless against City. And this is part of the cabal being biased against, I don't know, spinning up these stories.
Yeah, because Arsenal fans definitely do sometimes feel like their club's the only club on the planet.
That is, yeah. And that shit tires me just as much as people slandering my team. The game is by and large the game, and usually it balances out. There are a few decisions that I take particular issue with over the years, but most of them are at the, like Wolves. This is not the team we're talking about, but Wolves have been completely fucked by the PGMOL. They have like 7 to 10 legitimate penalty gripes over the last season, and it should be at like 2 or 3. I think occasionally we've got the short end of the stick. I also think we've benefited. Last year at Anfield, Odegaard could have been called for a handball, and that could have been a penalty. And I think as much as Arsenal fans make compilations of times we've been fucked, we should also be making compilations of times we've benefited, because the refereeing is never going to be perfect. It's important to pay attention to the times when you also benefit. And we have benefited. So this is an instance where we didn't benefit. And you know what? I honestly, and Oaks, you've talked about this, especially with Madrid, how you guys, like, it doesn't really matter the situation and you guys love adversity. You'll find a way out. We did well last year at the end of the season, and I think we proved a lot of people wrong that we couldn't go on an insane run. We won 16 of our remaining 18 games. That's fucking insane. But this is a good early season bit of adversity. We're missing our whole starting midfield. Marino probably would have been a first choice midfielder. We're missing 2 of probably the 4 or 5 most important players on the team who make up that midfield in Rice and Odegaard. And we're going away
and Odegaard's your captain too. Yeah, like, that's a big thing. Losing the guy who's got the armband, who's supposed to be talking to the ref.
Exactly. So all of these, and for a team that's so like carefully and meticulously built and managed by Arteta, to have that kind of all thrown into disarray ahead of a game as big as the North London derby, let alone next week is away at City. These are 2 of the biggest away matches, probably the 2 biggest away matches we play all season aside from Anfield. To have to kind of think on the fly and come up with solutions and fight through that, I'm more in the camp of that could prove to be beneficial for us than I am in the camp of the refs are trying to fuck us over. I like a bit of adversity. You're going to have to suffer to get to the top of the mountain. And this is our early bit of suffering.
Facts. And the one thing I will mention before we move on is we got to talk about Tottenham's injuries as well. Solanke being out is a big miss for them. Yeah. They obviously went out and spent a bunch of money to get a real striker to try and help replace Harry Kane. Richarlison is out, who, again, personally, I'm a take or leave guy. But, that is an injury there. And then so is Van der Veen. So it's not like Arsenal has all the injuries. Tottenham's dealing with their share of injuries as well.
Yeah, I think, and I want to give, that should be recognized because we're doing more of the whining. I do expect, from what I've heard, Van de Ven should be healthy, and maybe Solanke is too. I think for me, in my mind, number 1 biggest miss for them would be Van de Ven. He is integral to their ability to play a high line. His recovery pace is like a really a fundamental part of their defense, which already concedes a lot of chances. And after that, if they have Solanke and Van de Ven fit, I am even more interested in encouraging people to back them. I expect one of the 2 of them to miss. I don't necessarily think both of them will miss. And I think Richarlison is important, man. He's a guy who in the away North London derby last spring. He came on in like the 75th minute, and he gets in the mix. He very rarely takes more than 1 or 2 touches to get a shot off. He creates chaos, and he rattles the fuck out of the opposition, especially in a derby. Those features, those characteristics are valuable, and I think I'm not going to say that he's the difference between them beating us. We are just frankly a very good football team. Richarlison is not our Achilles heel. However, he is a dude that totally could create the chaos that leads to an equalizing or winning goal. And if they are without both of their number 9s, that's a big deal for them as well, as much as I've just gone on about our injuries. So I definitely, for those of you watching this, everything we're about to say about prices in terms of game markets, lean more heavily on the Tottenham side if you see Van de Ven and Solanke in the lineup.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess where we'll start is, what do you think this midfield's gonna look like for Arsenal? Because when we get that from you, because personally, I don't keep track of Arsenal like that. I know they have some other options, but once we kind of get what you think the midfield and the back line is going to look like, then we'll be able to talk a little bit of play, again, projected player props, some prices there. So we'll talk about what you think the lineup's going to look like a little bit first, and then we'll start talking prices for the game, and we'll jump into some player prop stuff.
So I think the big question here is whether Havertz starts up top or in the midfield. I think we're basically guaranteed to see a Partey Jorginho quasi double pivot, which is fucking terrible, quite frankly, for this matchup. Tottenham love to play on the break. They play fast. And as much as Jorginho and Partey have on-ball quality, off the ball, Oaks and I might be as good at tracking our runners as they are. Then the third midfielder, I think it's probably going to be Havertz. If it's not Havertz, I think it would probably be Trossard. If this happened in a month, maybe Calafiori or Timber comes in if they're healthy. Maybe Waneri, who's this remarkably talented youngster we have, but that's way too niche for this topic. Maybe Arteta gets a little more creative, but I think that we're probably going to go final answer Havertz, Jorginho, Partey. And then at the back, I think we're going to see Timber at left back, Gabriel Saliba, and Ben White. And then obviously David Raya in goal. And while we're doing this attack, I think it's going to be Martinelli, Trossard, false 9, Saka on the right wing. Another, and by the way, that's still a very good football team. That is,
I think Trossard fits into that role really well because he can distribute as well as shoot, and having him, I don't want to say incredibly pacey, but a little bit more pace to get on the get back than, say like a Havertz, who is much more of a defensive liability. Who's good? Well, I don't know. I want to say defensive liability, but he'll be more focused on his midfield responsibilities than being concerned with shifting to be what is his accustomed role for Arsenal, which is a center forward. Because your legs get tired, you get into the game flow, you kind of fall back into the habits you've been on for over a month, which is get forward, you need to strike the ball, and that's not what he's going to need to be doing in this one.
And I think that the Trossard offers us a different flavor. And my general gist is that Tottenham have some value here, and there's some ways to play this to maximize that value. But I do want to say, I don't know if we see it, but because Trossard is traditionally a left winger, and he and Martinelli can kind of have some fluid motion up top between left wing and false 9, and then Havertz, as Oaks said, is traditionally a 9, there is an opportunity for there to be some really creative movements in attack between Havertz, Martinelli, and Trossard. And if those come off, I think we could at times look really, really good on Sunday. I just haven't seen a bunch of that from those three guys. And Havertz, I'm pretty high on him as a striker. I'm pretty low on him as a midfielder. And he is a large man who takes up a lot of space, but he does not run particularly fast in the press. It's a weird one. He's an effective presser because he's enormous, but he doesn't hound people the way necessarily that like a Rice obviously does. So I think the midfield in particular is ineffective this weekend, and that's an issue. Quick caveats. If we see Raheem Sterling start, I'd be super excited. If we see a Jesus Sterling dual cameo, I would be super excited. And I should have said this at the beginning, but this could be one of the most entertaining North London derbies at times. I think at times we will, if you remember our match versus City, we sat deep and it was very fucking boring. I think at times we will do that.
The entire fucking match, dude. It was like watching paint dry.
Some call it
as a neutral. Again, as a gambling neutral, there's no value in that game unless you were on the unders and slept through it.
Yes. Some dared to call it a tactical masterclass. I was bored. I was happy with the point, but I was bored. I think at times we might try and do something similar. Tottenham move the ball quickly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think there will be moments where we get out and attack, and depending on who's on the pitch for us, there could be some really interesting shit that is a preview of what's to come with Sterling later in the season. That's just not what I think is going to happen across the whole match.
One question I got for you real quick, now that we're talking about it, do you think that this is maybe not the time to, or I don't want to say not the time to experiment. It's a derby. You obviously want to win, but you have UCL coming up and Tottenham doesn't. So Tottenham at home, I think, are going to have some motivation here. We know that they haven't started their season exactly the way they wanted to. I think most people don't have Tottenham competing for top four and for a UCL slot this year. Whether or not that's their own internal expectations, that's neither here nor there. It's just, do you think Arsenal would be happy coming out of this game with everybody healthy and fit, that's still healthy and fit, to prepare you for midweek to play UCL?
I think, and I probably, if Arsenal fans watch this, they'll tell me I'm not ambitious. I think if we get a hard fought point and everybody's healthy, I'm happy. I think it's too early in the year to decide that things are happening or are over in terms of season long projections because of this match, the next match. I think this year's UCL format, it being so different, means that, I want to go to Atalanta and win, but it's not like the mandate isn't the same. You have to win, I think, 5-ish and get a draw to guarantee qualification. The math works out to like 16, 18 points. I want to get through the next 3 matches basically with like some solid defensive performances without completely compromising our attack and get people healthy. It's a bit of a like, I'm in a hurricane right now. I need to batten down the hatches and make sure the house gets through the next 3 weeks. And if we get through relatively unscathed, I think we're in a really good place for the season. So yeah, I think there are a lot of ways for Arsenal to win, like deem this a success. I think the only way Tottenham can come away feeling like this is a success is with a win. Like, they've lost. We've beat them twice in a row at their ground. I believe, we beat them 2 of the last 3. And we've beat them in 3 of the last 4 North London derbies. They haven't won one in 2 years. They have, unless Van de Ven and Solanke are injured, they have really no excuses. We're missing our 2 best midfielders, our captain, our record sign, yada, 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 yada. A lot of excuses can be made for Arsenal, but the biggest thing, as you said, this is on their turf. Like, you can't be losing 3 derbies in a row if you want to be taken particularly seriously. There's a certain level of like, it's time to wake the fuck up and defend our fortress. And if they let a really hampered Arsenal come in and somehow steal a victory, like a point, let alone a victory, I don't know. I don't think that's a particularly good showing from them. Obviously, not all draws are created equal. I think they could play really well and it's a 1-1 draw, but I think that they should look like a very good side on Sunday. And if not, I think they should be disappointed.
So getting into some of the gambling stuff, one thing that stuck out to me is a red card being given in this game. We haven't seen a red card in this one since 2022 when Emerson Royale got one. But this is normally a very card-heavy game and very prone to reds and to penalties being awarded. So I kind of really like the number on a penalty to be awarded at plus 160. And I like the number on a red card to be shown here.
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think that it's more likely that a second yellow is shown than a straight red is shown. I think Tottenham have slightly more rash defenders in terms of who like dives into tackles. The only person I could see on Arsenal getting a red card, frankly, is Havertz or Partey, and that's at a stretch. Partey could like lunge at somebody who has blown by him because his legs are made of fucking.
I could also see Timber or White getting one trying to cover for those guys as well.
Yeah, there's. I think what I'm saying is on in terms of Arsenal, there will be space in behind at times when our midfielders are trying to track back and they can't. And I think that over the next two games, without our traditional midfield, we will look a little bit more open than we have been. That being said, Saliba and Gabriel just aren't getting sent off or giving up penalties. I'm very confident they don't dive into challenges nearly as much as Romero and Van de Ven do. But I do think it's going to be a particularly feisty North London derby. And yeah, I agree. I think that we could see, and obviously if you hit one of those two, that's decent profit. So I think that we could see a sending off for sure.
Yeah, just quickly, this ref has been pretty good. He's only handed out 4 red cards in his 49 EPL matches that he's reffed, which is less than 0.1 red cards per contest. But he does go to the book a fair amount. He's averaging 3.7-ish cards a game. The line on this game is set at 3.5, I believe. Let me double check that real quick. Total cards is set at it's moved up. Okay, so it's up at 5.5 now, which makes sense for a derby where it's traditionally been pretty card heavy. The last head-to-head only saw 3 cards, all coming late. But the one before that was a draw, had 4 in the first half, had 3 in the second half. This is traditionally a 6, 7, 8 card game because these guys hate each other. And I think with a depleted midfield for Arsenal, I think we will see some clumsy challenges, and I do think that cards are very live here, and this line is definitely getting steamed up from the over 4.5 it was when I did the show with Leg yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, just take Thomas Partey to get carded. That's maybe the freest money I can offer this weekend. There is about 100% chance he gets blown by and has to make a recovery challenge. I don't have the prices in front of me. Depending on his price, I would also look at Ben White. I think he's going to have to do a lot of recovery work down that side. Tottenham invert Udogie really and then push him high. Porro does the same on the right side, but he also plays a bit more from deep with the ball. Udogie likes to run into space and kind of create havoc and space for Brennan Johnson. I expect it to be Brennan Johnson and Son, or Solanke and Son, to kind of operate in. And I think that Jorginho and Partey are going to have their work cut out for them to track those runners. And when inevitably they can't, White is going to be stuck in no man's land. And over 90 minutes, he's probably going to have to make a foolish challenge. So my 2 for Arsenal would be White and Partey. For Spurs,
Romero.
I think
the lowest number on the board. He's also gotten an own goal in 2 of the last 3 London derbies.
Yeah, I think Romero is, I think people are too quick to psychoanalyze a lot of players. he is a fiery fucking dude. And that works in his favor a lot of the times. But when the pressure is particularly high, it happened against Chelsea. He got sent off. It happened against us. He plays up to the occasion a lot of the times, but when the occasion is the grandest, he also sometimes puts in some of his sillier challenges. He's both a big game player and a big game buffoon, if that makes sense. Like, he is as prone to putting on a world-class display as he is doing some really stupid shit.
I hate him. He's Argentine, and you know how I feel about the Argentine national team.
So I think my 3 picks would be, and it's hard for me to pick an attacker who's going to do this. I think Wilson Odobert, let me try and sell this. Wilson Odobert should start on the right wing. I imagine his number for a card should be like 6-1 or something. Martinelli is probably going to start and is our biggest threat in transition because of his pace. I think that if Odobert gets a particularly long run because Solanke's out and they don't have as much attacking depth, Kulusevski will probably come on for Madison in like the 70th minute to play the 10. If Odobert gets like 70-ish minutes, 100% can see a couple of situations in which he's tracking back, instead of Porro, because Porro has come so high and in field that Odobert is the man on the right side for Spurs who needs to track back, and he drags down Martinelli. Romero, we just talked about it. And then Udogie, not going to get into a Bukayo Saka conversation, but he is fucking brilliant, and he is a handful for every left back in the world. And especially when your left back spends half his game in the opponent's penalty box, tracking back against somebody of Saka's caliber is kind of the perfect recipe for a card. So long shot, I'd look at Odobert, but then I'm pretty confident in Udogie and Romero. And if you want to have a little fun, I would sprinkle on an Udogie white fullback yellow card parlay.
Nice. So I'll just toss out some numbers. Obviously, Gunna is out in London. He doesn't have access to all the domestic books. So I'll be giving you guys some of the books numbers here. This is FanDuel just because that's the only one I have open right now. So shop around. You're looking at Odobert at plus 500-ish, which I think is a decent little number. You're looking at Udogie at plus 260. Same with Ben White, plus 260. And then you got Partey and Jorginho sitting at plus 200, and Romero is plus 155.
Yeah, give me all of those, particularly Thomas Partey. If I could, I'm going to walk into a bookie this weekend. Will Hill will be seeing me this weekend in person to put a solid 20 quid on Thomas Partey to get carded. Nice. Because,
So other than, obviously we talked about cards. Those also have a little bit to do with the ref. We talked some bookings. I do like the potential of a red or a penalty here. The other thing I like in this match, and I know the last two have been high scoring, as Arsenal winning the last one 3-2 away, 2-2 prior to that, Arsenal winning 2-0 going back at, they've won the last 3 of the last 4. I feel like this game kind of screams an unders match. A lot of guys coming back from international duty. Those are long, tough flights, tough travel. I mean, they'll obviously be home here in the next, 24, 48 hours. You get to sleep in your own bed. You got to do training, blah, blah, blah. But as I mentioned before, Arsenal's got a bit of a look-ahead spot with UCL coming up. We could see some short rotations. And as we both mentioned, I think Arsenal's perfectly fine coming out of this match. Obviously, you want to win derbies, but as an away side in the North London derby with UCL to play in 2 to 3 days, you're going to want to get out of there healthy. And 1 point is fine with you. And as we said, you kind of think it's leaning a little bit towards a defensive showing from Arsenal. So I think there's a big value here on the under 2.5 at like plus 135.
Yeah. I think I'm also going to give out a pick that I just think has some good value on Bovada, which is the book that I use because I do not have American books. You can get Spurs double chance and under 4.5 as a parlay at about even money, which I basically think this game is going to be 1-1. I don't really care to bet on exact scores. I don't actually care that much about superlatives. We are one of the best defensive teams in Europe. Part of that is personnel, part of that is coaching. And a lot of the team is going to be different because of our injuries, but the back four is going to be the same. Basically, we have our first choice back four, and we have almost all of our defensive substitutions. And a big part of that defense is Declan Rice. I won't take that away, but this team doesn't like drop off a cliff when one man goes missing, unless Saliba went missing, which would be bad, but he's starting. And yeah, we're a really good defensive team. And I also want to give Spurs credit. They have in the past been really susceptible to conceding chances off corners, off set pieces. It's early, but their early season data, shout out to Jake Fox on Twitter, who's a brilliant mind when it comes to breaking down set pieces. They are actually quite good at defending set pieces thus far this season, and they have actually improved a little defensively in terms of their underlying stats, and they look a bit better. Still have a very high line, still concede chances, but they're not as open as last year, and we're really not open. And then all of Oaks's points about international break and look ahead spots are also super salient. And then one thing I want to add on top is because of the injuries, I don't think we're going to be approaching this game in a particularly gung-ho way. I think we're going to play this safe. I think we would kill for a 1-0 victory. Even like going for a 2 or 3-0 victory implies a certain level of openness at the back. You know, attack and defense are part of the same unit, and doing more of one means you're doing less of the other. And I don't think we have the personnel to step on their throats and win 4-0. I don't think we have the personnel to play a basketball game this time around because of our midfield. I think stylistically and in terms of the data, this is screaming an under. And I also think because of the injuries and it being at their ground, Spurs are in a decent spot to cover. And yeah, I think that a play either on the under, Spurs double chance. What I was going to say earlier is when I stepped out of the stadium against Brighton, Spurs double chance was -110. It is now -160. That is because Declan Rice and Odegaard,
largely of the Odegaard injury and the Rice suspension. Yeah, like you were saying.
It went to 130 later in the day after the Brighton match because the Rice news kind of trickled down through the markets. Odegaard got hurt this week and it got steamed to fuck. Don't take Spurs double chance at -160. But if you are interested in a Spurs and underplay, which is I think what we're going to get in this game, yeah, Spurs and under 4.5 is even money. And I unfortunately think we're looking at a kind of feisty, occasionally interesting 1-1.
I have a very similar feeling. For those of you with the Stones, look, I don't bet exact scores because there's just way too much that can go wrong. I'm also not a big cash out guy on any of my bets live. I like to ride my action unless there's something in the game that's screaming to me like, yo, you need to cash this out. One example would be not last weekend, 2 weekends ago. I was on draw in the Sociedad Alaves match. Sociedad scored a goal really early, took a red card. Alaves got a PK right at the end of half and scored it. And I told everybody, I was like, yo, I would cash out of this draw right now. You're making 60% on your money. This is a lot of game in a derby, a very similar situation in a derby, to be hoping that this scoreline holds. And Alaves, the dog, obviously being up a man, found a way to get in the back of the net right around the 80th minute. So I was glad to cash out there. But yeah, I'm not a huge cash out person. So I'm not sitting here saying to take the 1-1, but draw it plus 260 is really appealing as well.
Yeah. I think it comes down to like Arsenal are still the better team on paper. I think they're also better coached. I think with the injuries, the margins get closer. With the home field advantage, the margins get closer. And the data from this season thus far, which is admittedly skewed by playing 1/6 of our football so far down a man, I think that the margins are actually a little bit closer than they were coming into the season. The markets thought that Arsenal were like the first 0.5 best team in the world in the Premier League, like very close to City, but still off City. And then there was a gap, and then there was Liverpool, and then there was another very sizable gap. That margin, because of the injuries, because of home field advantage, because of the early start to the season, I think the teams are a little bit closer than honestly the two fan bases think. I think Arsenal fans are relatively cocky at the moment, maybe deservedly so. I think Tottenham fans are throwing the toys out with the pram, as the British say. They're pretty upset about their start to the season, but I think they've looked fine. Yeah, basically, I just think that this screams a low-scoring draw. However, when all of you and we lose money, it's because it's a derby. It's not because Oaks and I are wrong. It's because shit happens in derbies.
So I got another one for you, and look, I don't have the numbers in front of me right now because, again, I'm in America and I just have FanDuel up right now. My line shopping tool doesn't have some of these unique markets. But what do you think about? We kind of talked about the game pace versus City and how we think it's going to be defensive and a little bit low scoring. You're going to have to look to find the numbers on these, but they're projecting Arsenal to have over under 5.5 shots on target, and they're projecting Tottenham to have over under 4.5 shots on target. I like the unders on both of those for shots on target, and full game shots. They have Arsenal taking like 16 shots, which I just don't see. And they have Tottenham taking 13.5.
I think Spurs could take 14 shots. I would be surprised if we took 17. I actually think the shot on target numbers feel right. I could see it being a game where both teams have Spurs take more shots than we do. I was going to
say Spurs will spam shots even if they're not going on target.
I think that we could take like 9 shots and 5 of them are on target. One of those, like, if we win this game,
clinical in the box. If you get your opportunity, keep possession of the ball and move it around. And if you're going to shoot, make sure it's clinical and you have an opportunity to finish.
Yeah, I think if we do win this game, it's a game where we take like 9 shots, have like 1.7 XG, and have 5 shots on target and 2 of them go in, maybe even 3. And it's just good finishing, boys getting in good positions. But we have to we only really run up total shot numbers when we're like destroying an opponent and they start shooting for fun. When we're in tough battles, we do not shoot that often. Because
if you miss a shot, it's a loss of possession.
And Arteta would rather lose a child than lose possession. And yeah, I think I would look later on in the game if you can take live shots. Like if Jesus comes on in the 70th minute and we're down a goal, I would put a lot of money on him at like 7-1 to somehow take 2 shots in the remainder of the game, maybe even 3. Because we will chase eventually. We are not beyond the realm of chasing games if we need to. But I think, yeah, I'm totally with you. I would take the under. I would take the under definitely on Arsenal total shots. I would also take the under on would I take the under on Spurs? The thing is, they take so many fucking shots. They don't need to be
And they're
playing.
at home too. Like
Yeah,
that's the issue. They're gonna need to press for the result, and they don't have anything to worry about midweek.
Yeah.
So I do kind of like Spurs. If you could get ahead again, I don't have this market open, but I know they exist. If you can get a head-to-head shots market, Arsenal being the projected higher shooters sounds completely absurd to me. I would take Spurs in a head-to-head to have more shots than Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, of those numbers you listed, I actually quite like Arsenal under 16.5 shots. I just don't think. I think it really comes down to like Arteta will tell the team, he won't tell the team not to shoot, but he will really emphasize possession of the ball when we can and to make the most of our opportunities. And I think, I mean, even in the match that we won last year away at Spurs, I think I don't know if you have the numbers up. I imagine we had like 5 or 6 shots on target and 12 total shots.
Took 9 shots, put 3 on target, scored 3 goals.
There you go. That and we were the better team for 75 minutes. Like we just don't in tight matchups. It happened at Villa. We don't take that many shots because whether you agree with this or not, if you're open from 20 yards, it's still like a 0.1 xG. It's not a particularly good shot in terms of what the data says, and that gives your opponent the ball. So I would take under 16.5 shots in a heartbeat.
How do you feel about corners? Because Spurs do rack up a lot of corners and have historically kind of run your pockets on the corners lines here. You know, even excluding the red card matches, Spurs are the dog in a corner match bet here. This is a 3-way with the draw being plus, 750. You can find a 2-way line. But Tottenham being the dog in corners here, again, assuming that they're shooting the way I think they're going to be shooting, that does tend to lead to more corners too, because even if you're taking bad shots, a lot of times what they're doing is they're looking for that ricochet off somebody to win a corner to try and be dangerous on a set piece.
Yeah, I also want to go back quickly. If you were to take a shots prop on Spurs, I would take the over on shots on target. They're still taking a ton of shots, but they have more possession and control of the ball this year than they did last year. They have, I think, after City, they currently have the highest possession, average possession per game. And they're like both offensively and defensively, they're a little more controlled. When Ange took over, they were helter-skelter as fuck. Played like 170 miles an hour. It was never going to last.
It was fun to watch Spurs games for sure.
They've toned that down like 20%, but they are still getting into good positions. And when they do, they shoot. I do like the corners bet, but I just want to go back to that and say they are working the ball into slightly better spots. So they're still spamming, but it's a lowercase s, and they are getting shots on target.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely agree. So I know you said you think it's going to be 1-1. Who do you think, if you had to pick somebody for Arsenal, who's getting their name on the score sheet? Saka, you take it. You like him for a goal?
Bro, he's the best player on our team. He's the best player. No, he's not. Youngman's son is still the best player on the pitch, but he is one of the best attackers on the pitch. And more important than all that, he fucking loves a goal against Spurs. He scored in the derby. He scored in both derbies last year. He assisted in the derby last year away. Goal and assist in the derby away. Goal at home. And also had 2 goal contributions in the 2 derbies the year before. 3. Point is, the man loves to score against Spurs. He's been an Arsenal boy since he was 9. He hates Spurs as much as I do. It means something to him. There is not a single Spurs Academy player on that pitch, and there is 1 Arsenal Academy player on the pitch. And he very well may be our captain on Sunday.
So Saka plus 230 for a goal, which I think is pretty good. Again,
his goal
that's on FanDuel, shopped around too. That's the best number by a pretty big margin. Plus 190 seems to be the running average here. His assist is plus 270 on FanDuel, which is normally pretty low because they have soft assist grading markets. I'd say if you could get his assist somewhere in like, the 315, 325 area, I would like it. But if you want to play the to scorer assist market, plus 115 is definitely not a bad look.
What is he to score or assist?
It's plus 115. At least on FanDuel with the softer assist grade market.
Yeah, I like that. He's just like, he's going to play. He probably will play 90 minutes because of our injuries. He shoulders so much of our burden in terms of the attack. He hates Spurs. He loves scoring against Spurs. He loves assisting against Spurs. And he's also good enough to both score and assist. So I think that's where I come down for us. I think for Spurs, I would give I think the obvious answer is Son. I think that's a good play. Beyond Son, I would look at Porro and Madison. I think Porro, Madison, and maybe Pape Sarr, late box arrivals, shots from outside the box, maybe a deflection in there, but shots that are going on target that get awarded to them originally. Porro and Madison are, despite playing for the scum, they are really fucking good at putting balls on frame, and they're both in decent form. I think they've both already scored this season once, and they get into really good shooting positions. I don't think Spurs, they have a finishing problem, kind of. They cannot finish their good chances, and they finish their shit chances. I think they're probably not going to score a particularly well-worked goal, but they are definitely going to score. I think it's probably going to come from something unexpected. And I'll hate it, but I kind of think it'll be one of the defenders or midfielders. I would say Saka, and then fuck it, gun to my head, long shot. I think Madison gets on the score sheet.
I can see Madison needs to get back on the score sheet. He needs to just get his game right. So I track my first half shot data. And we did. What's up? Go ahead.
No, this is your time to shine. Everything that I would cook up here is guesswork. This is your bag.
So Saka's had 2 shots in the first half in 2 of your 3 games. Plus 190 for 2 or more shots in the first half does feel like a pretty nice number. In every single game this season, he's had a shot on target in the first half. Saka to put a shot on frame in the first half at plus 155. I like that because we did say that we thought the shot volume would be down for Arsenal. And because of what you just said about him being such a more clinical finisher, I think that Saka plus 155, again, he's done it in every match this season, shot on target, plus 155 in the first half.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. It kind of depends on how what our starting lineup is. And I guess, Oaks, I will probably, if I remember to, message you once I see the lineup. I have some interest in either Martinelli or Trossard to take 2 shots in the first half. I think if those numbers are a little longer, thinking more like plus 300, plus 350, I think one of them will take some shots.
Martinelli's plus 250. Trossard is actually the second low. He's the same price as Saka at plus 190.
Yeah, so I would go Martinelli. But that I would not, for those of you that love to parlay first half shots, these are things that I would sprinkle on for fun. And then the only other thing that I will say is Partey to have 1+ shot on target in the first half.
Ooh, you like him on a corner, huh?
As I live and breathe, that man is going to have the ball rolled to him at the edge. Let me tell you a story, Oaks. There are things in this life that you can't resist. beautiful women, good food, good travel, good times, beers, sports, and Thomas Partey with the ball rolled to him on the edge of the box cannot fucking resist taking a shot. It is
so he's your Lee Normand.
Yes, exactly. That ball, precisely. If a ball is skidded across the perfectly groomed pitch at Tottenham Hotspur's stadium, he literally cannot resist, no matter how much Mikel Arteta and the rest of his teammates urge him not to shoot. And not only does he shoot, he's not bad at it. The ball will either end up on Seven Sisters Road outside of the stadium, or it will end up in the back of the net. And I don't know what the number is. I'm hoping you're going to tell me it's something like plus 500, but
better. Yeah. It's plus 750 if he puts it on frame.
That is the shit I'm talking about. I do not want anybody to come for me when this doesn't happen, but I think he has had, and I could be wrong about this, I think he has had 1+ shot on target in the first half of 2 of the last 4 North London derbies. He has scored one of them. One of them hit the bar, and I think another one was saved. So,
him just to take a shot in the first half. So even if he does jack it into Rhodes End or out of the stadium, is plus 165.
I would take that. I say that is I genuinely think that is as good a play as any attacker to do anything. He is going to take a shot from outside the box, and I think it'll be in the first half. I'm telling you, he's done this. He's done this. My math, I might be wrong. He has done this, I think, 3 times on target and once off target in 2 of the last 4 North London derbies. I mean, we're talking about something that's happened 4 times, and one of them he didn't play in. Like, I don't know. He loves it, man.
How do you feel? So let's talk about set pieces, because set pieces are a big thing, and it's a way we find a lot of value because you do get, especially with you guys missing Declan Rice and some of and Odegaard, you're missing some of your shooters that do get involved in your set pieces here. How do you feel about Ben White just to take a shot this game at plus 140? And who are the other, because Saka's obviously putting in all your service, especially with Odegaard out. He'll be in charge of taking most of your free kicks and most of your corners here. Your target guys of Ben White and even Saliba, who gets some work in for France. Big guys who are physical and a presence in the air, who can get ahead on the ball.
What is Gabriel's price?
Gabriel is minus 150.
That's an issue. Because so aerially, it's interesting. Saliba often is the man setting the big body, setting the pick for Gabriel to run around. He's doing a bit of the shithousery in the box with Ben White. The dudes getting up in the air are often Havertz, who on set pieces is lethal. I don't think he's going to get involved in open play. He's going to be pretty deep, and he doesn't love to shoot from range. He likes those kind of like quick, snappy finishes in the box. I like Gabriel, but he's too short. I do not like Jorginho. I do not like Havertz, unless we're talking set pieces. I like Ben White.
You guys are keeping Saka on PK duty, right? He's proved himself enough that you're not going back to the fucking Jorginho experiment of the PK specialist who chokes him in the Euros.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Jorginho, actually, I said earlier Saka might be captain. Jorginho will be captain, but this is another thing for the Saka goal and assist play. I see if a team is going to give up a pen, I think it would be Spurs, and Saka would be the dude to score it. And I also want to add, we haven't spoken about this yet, but in the last 4 North London derbies, Arsenal has scored at least once in the first half in all 4 of them, and twice in the first half in 3 of the 4. This is just, I remembered this. Like, we have come out flying in 3 of the last 4 North London derbies, both home and away. So all of this shit that you're hearing us back, if you want to be a little riskier and play it specifically for the first half, I wouldn't advise against it. I think we could get a first half penalty in Saka that kicks his shot on target. obviously has to score it, but ticks his goal, ticks his score assist, ticks his shot on target, ticks 1 of 2 shots in the first half, all the above. But to answer your question, I think for set pieces, we're talking basically Gabriel, or Havertz. And then I like a Ben White shot. I always kind of like a cheeky Ben White shot, but it's very situational. It's weird. Like he will have to be given specific instructions to overlap and then find himself in the box. So it's one where like it's a bit of guesswork, but if he is overlapping, I really back him to take a shot, if that makes sense. It's this like, if he's doing the thing that he does when he takes shots, totally back him. But if he's not, he's just not going to take a shot. So I like it, but it's not, I don't think the game state, how I think the game will go necessarily influences whether or not he takes the shot, if that makes sense.
I hear that. Yeah.
I do for Spurs, if you're looking at stuff. I love Pedro Porro to take a shot. I love Pape Sarr to take a shot. I love Romero to take a shot. And I like Brennan Johnson to take many shots because he does, and he misses all of them.
Romero to take a shot is plus 120, which I like a lot. As I mentioned before, we have seen him on the wrong end of a couple of own goals here recently in the last couple of North London derbies. So I don't even hate, you'd have to go to MGM. I don't know the price off the top of my head. I could see an own goal potentially here. Porro, just to take a shot, is a little long at minus 260, and Sarr at minus 300. I agree with you on Sarr. I know he's a shooter, so that might not be a terrible, parlay piece. Or if you'd like him to shoot twice at plus 155, I think that is definitely a little bit of a better number. And like we mentioned, we do kind of anticipate Spurs to be a little bit more shooting than Arsenal, who we think is going to be a little bit more clinical.
I think what I would look at for Porro is a shot on target. I would look at Sarr taking 2 or 3 shots, and then Brennan Johnson I would look at taking 3 or 4 shots. Brennan Johnson, if I have to go all the way up to 4, I'm the least interested in him. I'm the most interested in Porro and Romero taking shots on target.
Porro, you can get it plus 290, and Romero is plus 480 for a shot on target, which is a very, very nice number.
Yeah, I like that. Porro at plus 260 is also crazy. He's a ridiculously good ball striker for a right back.
I agree.
Yeah, so I don't know how you'll summarize this for the video, but the stuff that has stood out so far is Saka score or assist, Romero shot on target, Porro shot on target, Partey to get carded. Those 4 things feel like the game could go and the under. The game could go a bunch of different ways, and I think that all of those things could happen in a Spurs win, an Arsenal win, or a draw.
I like it. And then real quick, before we kind of wrap this up, you did mention that, again, Arsenal has had a history of scoring in the first half. Would you lay minus 130 for Arsenal to be the first team to score?
No. But
too much juice?
It's too much juice because of the injuries we have. I think I didn't really break down what Odegaard and Rice mean for the team, but Odegaard's contribution in terms of the attack we talked about him being captain, but he makes our attack tick. He is the man that keeps the ball humming along and often finds Saka on the wing. Like that, his contribution, whoever is there, is going to have their work cut out for them in terms of, progressing the ball through the thirds, getting to the final phase, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think our attack is taking too much of a hit to lay juice on us to be the first team to score. However, I don't know what both teams to score first half is, but if that's like plus 200, plus 250, I could totally see Spurs striking in the 7th minute and the fans go wild, and then 30 minutes later we've like closed up shop a little and we equalize, or vice versa.
Yeah, both teams to score in the first half is sitting at plus 250. Forget taking Arsenal to score first. You can get them just to score a goal in the first half at minus 126. Again, shop around your numbers, guys. You can probably find a little bit better than what we got going on here. So I want to kind of wrap this up, but thank you very much for joining me, Gunna. Gunna will hopefully be a reoccurring guest in doing some of the live streams with us. As we get into the season more, he has been a busy guy and he has been traveling as summer wraps up. But as we get deeper into the fall and into the winter, I know his schedule opens up and he will hopefully be jumping on to join us with some more EPL talk when we're doing the live streams, because it's way easier to talk about this stuff when you have a starting 11 in front of you and you have a time crunch and you can just go, this is what I see. This is how I think the ball is going to move. These are the guys whose numbers don't fit what I feel the value is. And it's just a little bit easier to work like that.
Yeah. I will be locked in. It's always easiest for me to do the earliest game or when they're evening games, just because I'm 5 hours ahead of you. So anything at 9 p.m. or noon is particularly good, because middle of a Saturday, I'm probably at a bar watching the games, or at the games themselves. Exactly. But I will absolutely be joining some live streams. And for those of you still watching, I hope to interact with you when you're in the comments and bounce some ideas off each other.
Be sure to check out Gunna's stuff. I'll link his Twitter and anything else he's got down here below, especially his writing stuff. Before we get out of here, I do have to hit you guys with some plugs. Discord, obviously, I got a couple of Discords that I do. The links for them are down here below. That's where you can find all the first half shot data that I record and track throughout the season. You can join me and the other guys who talk footy all day long, all sorts of sports. We're always in there. It's always active. We're talking about NFL right now as the game gets ready to kick off tonight for the Dolphins. So be sure to check those out down below. You probably already know these, but make sure to follow me on social media if you want, at Burroaks77, Twitter, X, Instagram, all that stuff. And as I mentioned, I will have Gunna's stuff linked below. So appreciate you joining us again tonight, man. I know the time change is always a little bit of a problem to overcome, but I'm glad we could make it work, and I'm glad that you got the chance to introduce yourself a little bit and talk North London Derby. And I hope you have a great time. Are you going to the match?
No. So I have a buddy who's flying in from Boston. Shout out Brochek. He is going, but tickets to this match are impossible to get. I don't think you have any Swifties watching your streams, but it is harder to get North London Derby tickets as an away fan than it is to get Taylor Swift tickets. In the away end, tickets are like 700 quid. And even in the home stand, if you want to sit amongst people who fucking hate you, which you can do, it's like 300 pounds, which is just like, it's like $450, $500. And having been to it, short answer is it's a lot of money, and I'm perfectly happy to watch with like 10 of my Arsenal supporting friends at a pub and have just a bit of a time. It is something that I plan on doing. It's a bucket list item for most Arsenal fans. It's an incredible environment and it's a special day, but no, I'm not going. But yeah, man, just to wrap up, thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. I look forward to doing it again. And yeah, I will catch you next time.
All right, guys, that's it for us. I will be back Saturday morning to do some live streams. I'm going to try and cover more of the EPL slate. It seemed to be a little bit more popular than just focusing on one game. The 10 a.m. Eastern slate, I think the best game is Fulham versus West Ham, but we'll try and cover as many of those games as possible. So I look forward to seeing you then, and appreciate you all for tuning in. I'm going to run the outro, and we'll catch you later. Doses. We outside.